What's up, everybody? Let's talk about code and cameras. Unusual subject, but there's a point to it. So, as you might know, I am a bit of a camera hobbyist because I'm shooting all these vlogs and videos and so forth. And I use the Canon cameras, and I'm using a high-end cinema camera here because it just makes my workflow easier. As I've mentioned in previous vlogs, one of the big reasons why you get professional equipment, whether it be cameras, restaurant equipment if you have a restaurant, I don't know if it's a good example, or professional coding tools or high-end computers that will make your job easier. That's the key. All this professional gear is there to make the workflow, the flow of the work, a lot easier. You don't want to mess around with headaches. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the times, the difference between the mid-level prosumer equipment versus the high-end is incremental, meaning it doesn't seem like too much. So for instance, the video quality in normal circumstances and normal lighting with this high-end cinema camera versus my older 80D DSLR camera, it's middle-of-the-road type of camera, prosumer camera, a lot of people won't see it. Some people do see the difference, but a lot of people won't see the difference. Now, if that was the only reason why I got the cinema camera, it may not be justified in terms of the cost. The reason I got this camera is because it allowed for a much easier workflow. It got things done much more easily. So how does this relate back to code? So if you look at PHP, versus Node.js JavaScript. Now, PHP is a language designed from the ground up to create database-driven websites or web apps, as we call them today. And because it's been designed from the beginning to do that kind of work, it's really easy to get up and running with PHP to start building web apps. Super easy, in fact, that PHP is now by far the dominant programming language for server-side coding. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best overall, but it is the dominant one because it's easy, it's very fast, easy to learn, very performant at runtime. Meaning when you run PHP code, it runs much faster than Ruby, runs much faster than Python, and many other languages. Yeah, there are some other languages that run quicker, but PHP overall is quite good. On the flip side, you guys have something called Node.js with JavaScript, and it's very popular with the hipster nerds because it's new and because it does something really good for sites that require super high performance. And I'm not going to get into the details here, but just so that you know, when you're using Node, it's because you need to do something like a messaging system where you need super fast performance communication between the client, which is the web browser, and the server. You don't want no latency. You want it to go boom, 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 boom. Now, here's the thing. Those type of apps where you need that super ultra speed and that type of application is extremely rare. Maybe 1 in 10,000 sites may need that type of super speed that Node can provide. Most websites don't. Now here's the flip side. With Node.js and JavaScript, as I've seen so far, it's still a work in progress. So it's messy. It's difficult to get up and running. You're going to have problems configuring it. Things will conflict with this library and that library. It's a lot of work to get something done. Whereas with PHP, because it's far more mature, it's been refined over the years. We're at PHP 7 now. It's very fast, and overall, it works amazingly well. It's stable, easy to set up, hosting is easy, configuration is easy, so it just works. So how does this relate back to cameras? Well, recently, you got a couple of famous vloggers on YouTube, this guy Neistat and this guy named Canon. And they use Canon cameras. Now, Casey Neistat famously switched over to what I would consider to be the Node.js of the camera world, and that is the GH5. The GH5 is a Panasonic camera. Everybody loves it. It's great. It's got all kinds of capabilities built into it, and people go, wow. So a lot of people go, let's get this camera. We love it. But the problem with the GH5 is that it's missing one super crucial feature that the Canon cameras have, and that's autofocus. If you're doing this kind of work, solo work, as I'm doing now, where I don't have a camera person to start focusing for me, you need a crazy cool autofocus. Canon is the best in the game when it comes to autofocus, and Panasonic is potentially the worst in the game in terms of autofocus. So Casey Neistat, very famous vlogger, he's holding the camera up like this, he's doing his vlogs, and a lot of times he was out of focus with the GH5 because he got seduced by all the advanced features, like the 4K video and 10-bit color space, just in terms of a sharper image, right? A cleaner looking image. That's what the GH5 promised. But the problem was that the major thing that it left out was the autofocus. There's other things as well, won't get into it. So Casey, after using the GH5 for a while, realized that it doesn't actually help his workflow. It gets in the way of his workflow. And the features that are found in the GH5 that seduced him, he realized that they're really not very important for his medium, which is YouTube. 4K video, let's face it, I do shoot in 4K, but I think everybody watches everything in 1080p. Node.js is the same way, whereas everybody's sort of, ooh, Node, look how, if you have a messaging system, it's going to be super fast. But how many people need that type of super speed in terms of messaging? On the flip side, you got a good old PHP, which is super fast to begin with, maybe not as fast as Node in terms of the messaging and synchronous communications. Yeah, that's it, synchronous communications. But it does everything else so well, and it's stable. You don't have to mess around with configurations and downloading libraries and all this kind of crap. You can just get in there, start building your app. So, besides the fact, if you watch my vlogs, that I believe that you should be language agnostic, meaning you shouldn't be married to a particular programming language. You should be willing to look at any language depending on the needs of the particular job at hand. Sometimes it's technical needs, sometimes it's just business needs. Anyhow, so there you go. In the camera world, we have our PHP, which is Canon, which works great, super solid, great color science, best autofocus in the game. Ease of use is fantastic, very stable. And on the flip side, you have the GH5 in the camera world, which is kind of like Node.js. Has some really nice features, some great capabilities that you don't see in the Canons. But its workflow sucks. And at the end of the day, all this technology that we're using, whether it be cameras, whether it be computers, whether it be frameworks like Node.js or PHP Laravel or Java Spring, and what was my point? Oh yeah, all these technologies, they're there to do one thing: save you time. Save you time. That's the whole point of it, really, at the end of the day. So if you have a super nice camera, like the GH5, you can shoot 10-bit video and 4K, but you're having a huge trouble with the autofocus all the time, and it doesn't give you great depth of field because of the type of sensor that it has, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's kind of defeating the purpose. Meanwhile, you get a Canon 80D or a Canon 6D Mark II, or you get a super fancy cinema camera, although it's overkill for a lot of people. You get the job done quickly. You don't have to worry about all kinds of configurations and headaches and setup. Productivity is there when you use certain tech. So that's one of the reasons why I say to most people, go to PHP versus Node.js, because it's easy, it's fast, it will be able to do 99.9% of the work that you need to do, and it's very, very stable. In fact, I had a friend of mine who used to work for me. He's now a CTO of a company that's doing their series, I think A, of in terms of their business. They've raised millions already. And they built a part of their system in Node, but he said that they could have done it in PHP. It would have been a lot easier. It would have handled the job no problem. Again, what I'm talking about here is not a shot against Node. It's not necessarily saying this language is better than the other. It's a philosophical, it's a practical discussion about how you should look at technologies and tools that you work with. There you go. Bye-bye.